Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Decentering Men series. And the reason that I have this series is because I feel like for us exoticals, it really is easier for us to decenter men because number one, we're always going to be put on a pedestal by them. Number two, we're always going to be desirable by them. And number three, most men want to create us anyway. I think that other women have a harder time decentering men because if they're not male centered, they don't get any favors from men. And for us exoticals, we don't have to center men because we always have our pretty privilege to fall back on. We have multiculturalism working in our favor. We have a positive collective image working in our favor. So that's why it's easier for us to decenter men. But today's talking point is going to be about how most men, all they have to offer is dick and emotions. And think about this. The most emotional guys, usually they will be professing their love for you. Why? Well, it's because he doesn't have money, he doesn't have status, he doesn't really have anything going for him that's going to make your life easier. His lifestyle probably doesn't even match yours. He really just wants to attach himself to you and most likely ride your coattails. So that's why I'm saying that a lot of men, all they offer is dick and emotions. And it's like, okay, well, how valuable is that really? Because if anything, that's pretty basic. I mean, every man in this world has a D and every man has emotions. So a man could have the best intentions toward you. He could be the sweetest, most kind-hearted man. But it's like, okay, just because he's sweet and kind and expressed how he felt, that doesn't mean I owe him my body. So you're telling me I'm supposed to give myself to this man? I'm supposed to dedicate my life to him, and I'm doing that because he said a couple of beautiful words? So because he said some nice words, I'm supposed to just fall over and swoon and just sacrifice my entire life on his behalf. Do you hear how insane that sounds? That's mentally ill. Most men, they're not offering you sacrifice. He's not sacrificing his life to make mine easier. He's not sacrificing his time and energy. But I'm supposed to sacrifice mine all because this man says that he really likes me and wants to get to know me. And by the way, if you want to hear the behind the scenes of how I even come up with these talking points for this channel, be sure to follow the Patreon. That's where I go into detail about some of my personal experiences and how it contributes to my decentering men content. But number one, chemistry is not a plan. Chemistry is not a life plan, okay? Just because this guy's funny, attractive, he's exciting, he's telling you all the right things, that doesn't automatically mean that you should invest your time in him long term. Your time is really the only thing you have on this earth. Because think about it. Once you have no more time, that means you're dead. So it's like, just because a man gives you these sweet words, that doesn't mean you have to spend all of your youth on him. That doesn't mean that you have to suddenly rearrange your entire life to fit around his. And I just feel like the bar is in hell. A lot of women are very validation starved. And this is where us exoticals have an advantage. For most of us on average, we're not really validation starved like other groups of women say that they are. So because of that, it's easier for us because we're still getting validation in real life. We have friends. I'm hoping those of you listening to this have healthy friendships or some sort of family members or some sort of emotional support system. It's only the women with no emotional support that are constantly getting trapped by dick and emotions. I mean, that's literally one of the main tactics that men will use. They try to dickmatize you, and then they try to emotionally hypnotize you. They want you to get addicted to their emotional validation. So that's literally what running game is. He's saying the right things. Over in the red pill space, they actually talk about it. It's called having a mouthpiece. They say that, like, if you just compliment a woman enough times, then basically she'll do anything you want. So what a lot of men are looking for is they want to be able to use their words to get you to be enslaved to their validation. Most women won't leave their dusty boyfriends and husbands because once they leave, they have no more source of validation. The advantage that we have as exoticals is we have plenty of sources of micro-validation. We get validated for our hair, our facial features, our skin tones. We get validated in the media. We're validated by celebrity culture. We're still validated by the male gaze. So we don't really have as much validation starvation as a collective. So there's no need for us to stick around just because a guy is offering his D and offering his emotions. Also, most men are bad at sex. Most women on average do not have orgasms just based on penetration alone. So that's another thing too. A lot of women who are smexually active with these men, they're only smexually active because they feel validated in that moment. It's not because they physically feel good. They're not getting orgasms from these guys going inside of them. No, they're just feeling validated. She feels pretty for 10 minutes when he's pumping her. So again, you're doing that as a source of validation. I'm not sacrificing my body or risking disease all because I just want to feel cute for a couple of seconds, or I want to feel pretty and sexy. And think about it. What is a compliment? A compliment is really just somebody pointing out something positive about you. So you're telling me you're staying with your dusty boyfriend all because what? He compliments you? That's actually very sad. So you have nothing in common with this man. He doesn't even have a good personality in general. He is extremely disorganized. He has no life plan, but you're telling me you're staying with this guy all because he talks about how pretty you are? He tells you that you're sexy and he loves your body type and all that. That's why you're staying? So you're literally staying with somebody. You're wasting your life away with this guy all based on words. Meanwhile, if you really wanted compliments that bad from a man, just go out on dates with several men then. If you're that desperate and all you want to do is be told you're pretty, you could have got wined and dined every single day by a different guy rather than just staying with a dusty man. And all he's offering you is his D and his emotions. And that's another thing. It's like, okay, for the man who says, oh, I love you so much, or, I'm really into you, what are your emotions really worth? Because men's emotions change every second. A man will say that he loves you and then still cheat on you. And then he'll still say that he still loved you even in the midst of cheating. So it's like, okay, so your emotions are clearly worthless then because your emotions don't change your actions. So that's why I can't just be with some guy simply based on his emotional state, because you could be in any emotional state at any time. Your emotions literally change from second to second. The word literally means energy in motion. So how you feel is bound to change. Have you ever been around a guy where he starts off really liking you and then as soon as you tell him no, he is in a different emotional state? Now he's angry. So, all those good positive emotions that he was offering you before, those are now out the window because now you pissed him off. So most men, they don't really like you for you. They just like how you make them feel in the moment. And so even though he's offering you his emotions, he's really doing it with conditions. Men on average, they're not giving you unconditional love. No, he's saying, I only quote unquote love you if you make me feel good. I only love you when you compliment me. I only love you when you be quiet and bend it over and bust it open. That's what makes me love you. It's when you cook and clean for me. It's when you do all these, these acts of service. They'll talk about love languages as well. And then I've noticed sometimes men might actually use the love languages to gaslight you. They'll be like, oh, well, my love language is acts of service, so you need to cook and clean for me. Or, that's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. And it's like, okay, you're over here making demands on this woman, but then you're not even reciprocating. And it's like, even if a guy is reciprocating, let's say you have a boyfriend and he cooks and cleans and he's a nice person. Is that all it takes for you to rearrange your entire life and just follow this man and quote unquote submit to him? So you're telling me you're submitting to broke men who are positive thinkers? That's all it takes is him being a positive thinker. Then suddenly you're just in love, you're head over heels. No, that doesn't make sense. Emotions don't pay the bills. Emotions don't give me a sense of real stability. Emotions clearly don't stop you from being disloyal. You'll still cheat and then claim to have all these positive emotions towards me. So it's like, what's the point? Your emotions are basically worthless then. How do you know if you're falling for the dick and emotion trap? Number one, you're falling for him based on things like text messages, FaceTime, DMs, he's flirting, he's complimenting you. I get it. That kind of stuff feels good. But attention, that's not provision. Attention is not the same as intention. And also, attention is not the same as action. So if that man is not solving problems in your life, if he's not creating stability, they tell women to be their peace. And it's like, first of all, you already screwed yourself over with that because All you have to offer me is emotions, and now you're telling me I'm responsible for your emotional piece. So now you're admitting that all you're going to bring into my life is emotional chaos then. In your natural state, you are a chaotic man. And that's actually true for a lot of men. A lot of men don't have inner peace, and that's why they spend their life chasing skirts. That's why they spend their life chasing after young women or white women or, whatever woman makes him feel the most emotionally validated. It's because a lot of men, even though they offer you emotions, their emotional state is not even solid or stable. Have you ever listened to a man rant and then he starts complaining about society and how it's set up? And, he basically starts going into this victim mentality. Okay, that's not even a good emotional state anyway. Why would I want to attach my emotional state to his? That's what a soul tie is, by the way. I see a lot of content where women talk about soul ties, but they don't know what your soul is. What do you even mean by your soul? Because when I use that word soul on this channel, I'm talking about your mind, will, and emotions. Because that's what I was told that a soul was, when I used to be spiritual. So a soul tie is when your mind is tied to him. You're thinking about him all day long. Oh, well, what is Daniel thinking? Well, what does Tyler think about this? Well, what is he doing right now? Well, what does this text message mean? That's a soul tie. Your will, so that means your decisions. The decisions you make, if they're based on, oh, well, Tyler, he doesn't want to move to this new city, so I'm not going to move. Oh, well, he doesn't want me to solo travel. He thinks it's too dangerous, so I'm just going to stay seated. I'm just going to be trapped in my hometown for the rest of my life because he doesn't want me to solo travel. That's a soul tie. And your emotions. Oh, well, I'm upset because Tyler treated me badly. I'm upset because he didn't say hi to me today. I'm upset because he didn't respond to my message. Do you know what I do? If I was texting somebody and this guy didn't respond to me, I just block him. I just block his ass. Guess what? You need space? You say you want space? Okay, why don't I solve the problem for you and give you permanent space for the rest of your life? You're blocked. Number 2, emotional excitement distracts you from incompatibility. Have you ever met a girl where she's with this guy who's a loser and she'll be like, oh, but he's so sweet. He's so kind towards me. He's never abused me. He talks to me nicely. And it's like, ma'am, that's the bare minimum. Of course he should be treating you with respect. Of course he should be responding to your messages and showing up and, communicating with you. That's just bare minimum basics. Also, think about how society has socialized men. Society devalues emotions, and they teach men that showing emotions and processing emotions is bad. So the average man is walking around with unprocessed trauma. He's walking around with pent-up rage. He's walking around with depression and doesn't know it. He can't even name 10 different emotions. And if you don't believe me, go and text your brother right now. Text your brother, text your dad, and say, hey, can you name 10 different emotions? Can you name 10 different emotional states that you experience on a regular basis? If you don't believe me about what I'm saying about men, ask your dad if he's even there. Ask your dad, ask your brother, ask your boyfriend if you have one. If you have any male friends or coworkers, ask him, hey, what are the most common 10 emotional states that you've been in for the past 30 days? I guarantee you he won't be able to answer. He'll be confused. He'll be like, what? Because men on average, they're not socialized to even care about their emotions. They don't even know what they're feeling. So it's like, how am I supposed to trust you when you say you love me or, you really like me, you have a crush on me, you want to pursue me? How am I supposed to trust you when you can't even name your own emotional state? You don't even know how you're feeling, sir. So how are you going to convince me that you're emotionally stable? That doesn't even make sense. And I know what I'm saying is true because have you ever been around a man who switches up on you? One day he's happy or, maybe you're in a relationship. You guys are in the talking stage. It's going well. Then the next day, suddenly, oh, he's cheating or he found somebody else or, he decided he just doesn't want a relationship, even though at the beginning he swore up and down he just wanted marriage and, he was so gung-ho and excited. Okay, so that's proof that his emotional state is not even stable. It's going to change minute by minute. So why would you trust and make long-term decisions based on a short-term emotion? And I think a lot of women's standards are too low because they just choose a guy based on how that guy makes them feel. And it's like, okay, but what does your life look like with that man? So it's like, yeah, if you're living in the middle of the ghetto, but oh, Tyrone makes me feel good when we're laying on our mattress on the floor. He makes me feel good. He has such a positive mindset. Okay, but look at your life though. You cannot convince me that somebody has chaotic finances, they've got a chaotic life, their life is all over the place, their bank account is all over the place, but suddenly you expect me to believe that their emotions are completely stable and perfect and oh my god, he's just so mature and he's such a great planner and oh, he's just so calm. No, that doesn't even make sense because generally speaking, your life and your emotional state are linked. So if that man truly is emotionally stable, wouldn't you be able to see it reflected in his life? You're telling me you're such a fucking emotional god. You're able to go monk mode. That's how great your emotional state is, but you can't manifest shit. You can't do anything in life. You got no education, no credentials, nothing going for you. Gas tank is on E, check engine light is on, car's about to get repossessed, you got a high car payment, credit cards with hella high interest rates. Oh, but you're just so peaceful. You expect me to believe that you're just such a peaceful man and you're just so mature and just, oh my God, you're so capable and oh, you're so positive. So you're telling me you live in a crazy, negative world. You've got all these negative circumstances happening in your life constantly. You've got all these problems in your life, Tyrone, that you created yourself. But suddenly, you expect me to believe that your emotions are just so profound and so perfect. Have you ever met those guys that try to pretend that they're so deep and they're so woke? And it's like, why is it that the brokest men are the most intellectual? The brokest, most unaccomplished men, they've got the most to say. I mean, they know everything. They know all about politics. They know all about the fucking international trade system. They know about every economy from every country. They know about all the stocks, all the crypto, everything that's going on. They talk about how everything is rigged and it's a conspiracy. And, you know, they know all this stuff about history. But they can't manifest shit. Where are the results, sir? You want me to believe that you're such a great man? Well, then I should be able to see that reflected in your life. Most men have nothing to show for their emotional state except for chaos. So, like I said, that's how I know that he's not actually emotionally stable. Because if he truly was, he'd be able to make better decisions. A lot of men make decisions out of chaos, and a lot of men use alcohol to calm themselves down. You know, they use substances and stuff in order to alter their emotional state. And then they won't admit that, but that is what they're doing. Because think about it. Why does a man drink so heavily on the first date? Why is he getting drunk on the first date? You know, why is it that men are sitting around with bottles? He's over here drinking brown liquor out of the bottle, throwing it back like it's fucking water. He's over here gulping down fucking Hennessy. Gulp, 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 gulp. That's the sound his throat is making when he's gulping down that Hennessy. And then he expects you to gulp down his D later on. And that's why I'm glad that over here in the exotical space, I'm glad that we've talked about having an internal locus of control, because it's like, you know what? I don't care if every man was gone. I don't care if no man ever came up to me again. Even if every man stopped complimenting me or I was single for the rest of my life, I'm a cat lady. Guess what? I still have me. I am the love of my life. I get to be the love of my life. I know how to spoil myself. I know how to emotionally regulate myself. And by the way, that's a good question to ask a man as well. That question will expose him. All you have to do is ask him, hey, how do you regulate your emotions? I guarantee he's going to go blank. He won't have an answer. How do you regulate your emotions without using drugs, alcohol, video games, or corn? How do you regulate your emotions without using women's bodies as a cum dumpster? How do you regulate your emotions without having to dominate and subjugate other people? How do you regulate your emotions without having to be violent against other men? How do you regulate your emotions without having to insult your loved ones, like your girlfriend, your children? Have any of you ever had a father who would insult your mother, or he would just resort to insulting you, his children? So it's like, that's my question for men. How do you regulate your emotions without hurting others or yourself? Most men don't have an answer. Okay, number 3, potential is not a resource. A lot of the girls who are settling for dick and emotions, guess what? You're just dating his potential. Anytime I hear a woman bragging about a man's emotional state and that's all that guy has to offer, he has nothing else going for him, no money, no education, absolutely nothing. Okay, so she's dating his potential. She's basically saying, "Oh, but Johnny is such a positive person and he's such a great guy to the point where he could be successful. He could take action." Okay, but potential is not a resource. Potential is not the same as action. And that's what I meant when I was talking about fantasy bonds on this channel. It kind of like bonding with a fantasy or having magical thinking or like romanticizing this man or thinking a man is coming to save you. His potential is not your resource. So a lot of women, they're dating a man's future instead of dating his present reality. Who is that man right now, today, at this moment? What does he have to offer you today, right now, at this moment? They love asking, well, what do you bring to the table? Okay, well, guess what? We can keep that same energy. What does this man bring to the table? Who is he right now? If he were to stay the exact same for the rest of his life, would you still want to be with him? For most women, the answer is no, and that includes married women. And we know that to be true because, nobody's perfect. So if you don't believe me, go and ask the nearest married woman that you know. Go ask your sister. Go ask your mom. Hey, if dad were to never make any changes in any area for the rest of his life, would you still be with him if he were the exact same as he is now and never make any improvements ever? None of his qualities ever get improved for the next 80 years. Would you still be with him? Most married women would be stumped. They wouldn't even know how to answer that. And I've noticed that a lot of women in relationships, they're spending their time trying to make the man look perfect. I never trust a woman where all she has to say about her man is just all these positive qualities, like he's just fucking perfect. It's like, do you think I'm an idiot? That's how I know that your man must be extremely dusty because you're over here listing all his perfect qualities. Who are you trying to convince, me or yourself? A lot of women do that as a coping mechanism. They're really trying to convince themselves that their guy is perfect. They're trying to convince themselves that their guy is high value. But it's like, I would never trust a woman who she only talks about the positives of her relationship. She never tells any flaws that that man has. And those are the same women where, 10 years later you find out that she was being abused or something crazy. So anytime I see a woman where she will never share that man's flaws, that's how I know that she's basically managing his image. She's his fucking PR assistant. She's his fucking publicist. She's doing this entire press tour. She's Olandria. She does this entire press tour trying to restore that man's image because, in reality, he's actually dusty. He has unstable emotions. Also, have you ever met a man where after you guys break up, then suddenly he wants to come back, or maybe after he's blocked, then he wants to show up in person, or, he comes back 6 months later, sometimes way later, like 20 years later. Okay, emotionally unstable. He thought he could do better than you. He couldn't. He got humbled, and so then he comes crawling back. Oh, well, I want to be just friends. No, you still want access to me. That's what that is. That's an external locus of control, which is very common amongst men. I believe that men tend to have way more of an external locus of control than women. And that's because women on average, we're better at building communities. A lot of us will actually sign up for therapy. That's why the majority of patients in therapy are women. It's because we actually practice self-care. There's not a really big self-care culture amongst men. And so that works to their detriment. So a lot of them are emotionally unstable. They make permanent decisions based off temporary emotions. They will ruin their entire families and careers based off of being turned on temporarily. Or they will have fits of rage and then they will get into DV. He ends up in prison or something like that. A lot of guys, they make emotional decisions that are a detriment to their future. So, like abandoning their families and stuff like that, or insulting their children, and then they wonder why their son grows up and has no contact. So if you're an exotical listening to this and maybe you just went through a breakup or something, there is no need to be crying about that man. Trust me, that man will shed more tears than you ever will. That man will suffer more than you ever will. I am a firm believer in female privilege. Not even just pretty privilege, but female privilege in general. I am a firm believer in that. Most self-deletions are done by men. So if you think you're sad right now, even if the guy cheated or if he, I mean, that's even more of a sign that he's got way less emotional stability. So it's like you might think that, oh, he's probably happy right now. Even if he is happy right now and celebrating your departure, those emotions are only going to be temporary. Most men are very bad at processing their emotions in real time. So that's why you have so many scenarios where the guy comes back a few weeks later or a few years later because it took him 5 years to realize he was wrong. It took him 20 years of being alone. Like I said, for a lot of men, pain is their teacher. Most women are smart enough, we're wise enough to learn from our mistakes and other women's mistakes. A lot of men are very arrogant, and so the only way that they learn is through pain. The pain of losing someone, the one that got away, the pain of losing their families, losing their children, not having any friendships, growing old by themselves in one of those retirement home things. So, for a lot of men, pain is going to end up being their teacher. And trust me, if you're upset about a breakup, I promise you, he is crying way more tears than you ever will. He is suffering way more than you ever will. If you were in a 50-50 relationship and you got out of it, trust me, he's going to suffer way more than you because society does not pity men as much as it pities women. And so a lot of times people are more likely to help you as a woman because you're less of a threat. Men have a very terrible collective image. Their collective image is that they dominate and subjugate others. They're violent. They're very competitive. They're like snakes towards each other. They betray each other. So if a man is down bad, he's less likely to be helped. Usually, if a woman is down bad, she might have other women that come and help her, even strangers. Like, I've seen strangers just help other women or like be super generous to other women. But a lot of men, because they've had a history of being bad at building communities, they can't even do that. So, whatever man you just broke up with, he is suffering. And if he's not suffering right now, he will most certainly be suffering in the future because you're telling me he's emotionally unstable. He's financially average or below average. And that's another thing. Men are not increasing their value as they get older. That's one of the biggest lies I've ever heard in my life. That's not even how capitalism works. You don't just get richer as you get older. If that were the case, then there would be no such thing as old poor people. Every single old man would be a multimillionaire then. If your value as a man naturally goes up with age, then why is it that most people's grandpas are poor? If you don't believe me, think about your own grandpa right now. If you're watching this, think about your grandpas, think about your uncles, or any men in your family who are senior citizens. Are they all billionaires and millionaires? Probably not. So that's another BS talking point. Oh, well, your value is going to go up and you're going to be more financially stable. You have more time to build yourself up. Our society is not set up for everybody to be successful at building themselves up, and especially not men who have a tendency to not be able to build themselves up. They have to dominate and subjugate or even enslave others to build themselves up. So you don't have any true skills to build yourself up. So you're telling me that the average man who has no emotional skills, he's financially illiterate. Some of them actually can't even read. I saw that it's been going viral that like the reading levels are, lower than they've ever been as well. So this man, he's financially illiterate and he's illiterate in the English language as well. But you expect me to believe that he's suddenly going to become a millionaire when he's in his 40s. I'm in my mid 30s right now. And in my city, around this age, this is where a lot of the men, they start losing their hair. So all that little cockiness that he had when he was a YN, all that little cockiness that he had back in college, most men peak in college. I've talked about that on here as well. Most men peak in high school or college because think about it. They have muscles when they're younger. Well, for the most part, they're kind of stronger when they're younger. They have more energy. Eating bad foods and stuff, it doesn't really have as much of a bad effect on him. But once that man hits his mid 30s and 40s and all those bad decisions start piling up, all those bad financial decisions from 10 and 15 years ago start piling up. Him quitting every job he had. Maybe he dropped out of college or something like that. Maybe he never finished what he started. Maybe he got a few girls pregnant. Maybe he got arrested a few times. Maybe he just made a whole bunch of mistakes. I've noticed that around my age, I see it like in real life. That's when all their decisions start to really catch up. And that's where, you start to see this really big divide between the men who made the huge mistakes versus the men who are average versus the men who made better decisions. Generally speaking, if a man is extremely emotionally unstable, obviously he's going to make the worst decisions. And think about the type of man that is insecure as well. Think about the type of man that like hates himself, or maybe he hates his background, or he's insecure about his height or something. That's an inferiority complex. All of those are different types of inferiority complexes. So you expect me to believe that men's value increases as they get older. So a man that has multiple inferiority complexes, and that's how he lives his life, that's his worldview, that's the lens that he views the world through. Suddenly his finances are going to just magically be superior. Suddenly he's going to have superior status, superior looks. He's just going to be world class and elite on every level just by getting older. That's laughable. And that is statistically untrue. Usually people who are born poor die poor. Generally speaking, people who rack up a lot of debt, they die with all that debt. So it doesn't change just because it's a man. And also going back to this talking point about how most men are just offering D and emotions, butterflies, feeling butterflies and feeling excitement, anybody can create excitement. That's very basic. But there are less men who can bring peace and reliability and trust into your life. How many men do you know who are reliable? I'm dead serious. I'm asking for the audience, how many men do you know who are truly reliable in every area? Everything they say they're going to do, they do it. They're very consistent, whether it's with their diet, with their exercise, with their career, when they show up for their wives or whatever, when it comes to relationships. Most men can only get maybe 1 or 2 out of like 50. So maybe he's good with his diet and exercise, but he's trash when it comes to relationships. Maybe he's good at his career, but he's a terrible father or a terrible husband. So most men, they're not going to have all the infinity stones. They're not going to have every area being perfect. And so it's laughable to me that you see all these women, they're somehow bragging that, oh, this man is so great, he's so perfect. And then they show pictures of themselves on Instagram with like flowers and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, how convenient that you never talk about any of these guys' flaws. And I'm glad that in the exotical space, we can be honest because, it helps us to not be led astray. So I'm glad that we kind of have our own safe corner of the internet where we can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly experiences with men. But yeah, I don't trust any sort of relationship guru where everything she has to say is just perfect. Oh, well, this guy, Johnny, he's just super high value and he's got everything going for himself. No, he doesn't, because nobody does. Also, a good question to ask yourself if you are talking to a guy right now, just think to yourself, if this guy disappeared tomorrow, what would actually change in your life? Would your lifestyle change? Would you lose emotional support? Would you lose opportunities for growth? Or are you just losing dopamine? That's all a lot of these guys are. They're literally just a dopamine source. If I want dopamine, I can eat a fucking cookie. If I really wanted dopamine that bad, I can scroll my phone, bitch. I don't have to get terrorized or go through all this drama. And a lot of women won't admit that's really what their man is. All he is just dopamine because he's not bringing anything to the table. He's not bringing money. He's dusty. He lives in a basement somewhere. He lives in a shack. He lives in his car. He's got absolutely nothing going for him. But a lot of women are just staying just because of the dopamine. So that's it. And I just feel like a lot of women overvalue attraction, they overvalue emotions, and they undervalue contribution. What does this man contribute to your life? Because even on a basic level, if you do have a boyfriend, this guy, he could at least be making your life easier somehow. But for a lot of women, they're with these guys where it's like, oh, but he's handsome. Oh, but he's an interesting person. He's funny. That never made sense to me, the whole humor thing. Oh, I just fall for a guy because he's funny and he tells jokes. If I want to have some jokes, I can just watch a comedy special on Netflix. I don't need an entire man living in my apartment. A man being handsome, that doesn't build a life. Him being interesting, that's not going to change your life. That's not going to build your life up and make it better. all this talk about survival and, trying to level up. Okay, so you're willing to level down just because what? He's funny? Just because he's handsome? Just because he's attractive? If I want to see something attractive, I can just look in the mirror. I don't have to look at a man. If you really just want to look at an attractive man, you can just do what the men do and just look at a freaking movie. I mean, they will look at corn, but it's like you don't have to go through all the drama if you just wanted to look at some guy that's attractive. But a lot of women are so validation starved that they're willing to settle for anything, so he could be a complete bum. But as long as he's cute, or as long as he's funny, or as long as he's woke, and he's got all these conspiracies about how, oh, black people are extraterrestrials, and we're all aliens, and like, we're all gonna ride on a UFO. They got all this stuff, and they'll be like, oh, he's so interesting. It's like, okay, but does that change your life? The bills are still due on the first. Also, all you have to do, if you really want to decenter men, just compare that man to your existing life. Okay, how does he compare to your current friendships, your business, your fitness goals, your peace? Is he enhancing those things? Is he helping you with building your business, or is he just expecting you to be his employee and his personal chef? Because a lot of women, how they say, oh, what do you bring to the table? Well, women bring emotional labor, planning skills, managing his family relationships, managing all the birthday plans, encouragement. Most men do not experience encouragement. That's like one of the number one most valuable things, especially to a man, that he really needs. I'm just talking about like in society in general. Society is extremely discouraging towards men because, like I said, men have not built communities amongst men where they encourage other men. So even if a woman was ugly, hideous, fat, baby mama, has STDs, all this stuff that they talk about not wanting, even her bringing encouragement is still going to psychologically build that man up. So when they say, oh, what do women bring to the table? Social connections. Most men don't even have a fucking friend group until they get a girlfriend. A lot of men don't even go out. They're antisocial on average. And especially kind of the younger generations, they're chronically online. So what do women bring to the table? Domestic skills. Cooking, cleaning, vacuuming, organizing his clothes, ironing his clothes for work. By the way, if you are dealing with a man, usually the way to tell what that man is offering you, it's going to be based on what he mentions the most. Like, so for example, if you just meet him and he's only talking about sex, well, that's the main thing he has to offer, is his D. If you first meet a man and he starts liking you and he's speaking on how he feels, then that's what he has to offer the most. It's probably emotion. So it's probably going to be more of a 50-50 relationship where he emotionally loves you or whatever, or he's emotionally into you. If a man comes in out of the gate, spoiling you, buying you gifts, whining and dining you, he probably has money to offer. If you first meet a man or he likes you and he's introducing you to all these opportunities, he's getting you a new job or something, or he's like, I don't know, helping you network somehow, he's probably bringing a sense of community into your life, or he's going to help you build your business somehow. So if you want to know what the man you're dealing with, what he's offering, just think about what he talks about the most. How does he spend most of his time with you? What activities are you guys doing? Is he spending his money on you, or is he just talking about his emotions, or what? Is he just encouraging you, or just telling you how pretty you are, being your hype man? Are you willing to sacrifice your life and rearrange your life all because he's your hype man? So because he tells you you look good, or oh, that outfit is fire, you're really going to dedicate your whole life to him? If you want a fire emoji, just go on Instagram. And another aspect, I think I'm on like number 5. Another aspect of him just offering emotions, some men only offer anticipation. So have you ever been in a chronic talking stage? Well, yeah, that's because that's all he has to offer is anticipation. So he's future faking, he's talking about what the future with you would look like. He's talking about marriage, or talking about like, oh, you could come over, we can travel. He's storytelling. He's a great storyteller. He's fantastic at storytelling, but doesn't know how to make money off storytelling. It's like, you could have been fucking Steven Spielberg up in this bitch. You're over here telling me stories and fantasies. You could have written the next Disney movie. So you're amazing at storytelling, but don't know how to make money off of it. And by the way, if a man gives you a lot of emotional highs and lows or kind of like this roller coaster feeling, okay, so that's a sign that all he has to offer is emotions. And really, that's turmoil. That's a sign of emotional instability. It's also a sign of him probably having some attachment issues as well. Maybe he's anxious or avoidant or disorganized, which is both. Have you ever met a man where as soon as you start avoiding him, then he becomes anxious? And then as soon as you like him again, then he becomes avoidant. So basically, these are the men who only like you when you're gone. He only likes you when you're gone. He only likes you after you dump him. So that's proof that he only likes the idea of you. He likes you as a symbol, not you as a person. He just likes the idea of you, not the reality of who you are. So some questions you can ask yourself are, is he making your life more stable? Is he helping you achieve your personal goals? So for example, you want to be an actress. Is he paying for the acting classes? You want to be a nurse. Is he paying for the nursing classes? Is he paying for you to take your tests and, get your CNA or your license or whatever you're trying to get? Is he consistently showing up? Is he reliable? Does he make your daily life easier? Is he getting you gas, pumping your gas or something? And these are just random examples off the top of my head. I'm not saying that if he does one of these things, then like he's high value. No, not at all. But I'm just saying those are examples of making your life easier. So is he giving you opportunities? Is he reliable in general? Is he aligned with your values and your future plans? Because a lot of men are actually very bad at planning their own futures. That's why a lot of them are dusty and still living in poverty and debt. It's because he was bad at planning his future. He sacrificed his future income by racking up credit card debt so he could pay for OF. He had to pay for the OF subscription. He had to pay for the new video games. Constantly chasing dopamine. That's an issue with a lot of men. And I'm not saying women can't have the same issue, but this is a decentering men video. So what is he doing in his spare time when you're not around? Is he dopamine chasing? Video games, alcohol, substances, watching porn. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.